Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk and welcome back to the 11th Slimekeep Devlog. So in this devlog, I finally got around to working on procedural generation for Slimekeep. And this is something I've been aiming to work towards for a while now, and it's very central to the game and any other roguelike out there. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So the first thing I had to figure out was what kind of procedural generation to use. So I spent some time researching roguelike generation to try to figure out what would fit Slimekeep the best. And while researching this topic, I knew that I wanted to make some kind of random generation similar to Enter the Gungeon, because I really like how Enter the Gungeon goes about generating rooms and corridors. And after a few really nice articles, I found out that Gungeon uses these flowcharts, called flows, and uses them to generate a level. For every room in that flow, the game randomly selects a room from a massive list of possible rooms, varying with each floor, and plops that into the level. Then corridors are made to connect these rooms, and there's a bunch of other cool stuff that goes on behind the scenes that I won't get into right now. But I just really like this approach because I can make quality, handcrafted rooms while also having a sense of randomness involved. So with that knowledge, I did some more research on how I could try to achieve this kind of generation, and unfortunately I didn't find too much on YouTube or Google, and most of the tutorials out there were just a bit off from what I wanted to accomplish. And at this point, I was really stuck, and I didn't know if I should use a tutorial that wasn't really meant for a roguelike and just adjust it, or try to make something from scratch. So while I was googling away trying to find a solution, I came across this asset called Edgar. And this asset seemed super cool, and it was exactly what I was looking for. It would allow me to make flows similar to Enter the Gungeon called level graphs and create preset rooms to use. So I downloaded the demo and started messing around with it and trying to see how it worked. It was really easy to generate basic levels, and I thought I would just have to figure out spawning enemies and closing doors on my own. Then I headed back to the GitHub page and found out that the paid asset had an example where they mimicked Enter the Gungeon, and right there I bought the asset for $10. So I know this might be kind of controversial to use an asset, and I really don't want to use too many assets in this game, but I just thought this was the right choice because this asset probably ended up saving me weeks, if not months, trying to figure out procedural generation on my own. It's an amazing asset with tons of customizability and features. And at the end of the day, for the mere price of $10, I think this is definitely worth it, but I think it would be really cool to come back and try to make my own procedural generation in another game as a challenge when I get some more experience under my belt. But before I start working on procedural generation, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, Core. Core is a new free game creation platform that allows you to build, publish, and play games. If you're just starting out with game development, Core is a great choice and allows you to quickly create your own games. It's especially useful if you want to set up a 3D multiplayer game. And the best part is you don't even need to know how to code, so you can get started making games instantly with their thousands of free, high-quality music, sound, and art assets with no coding required. But if you'd like to go deeper, feel free to create your own game logic in Lua. You can build games completely from scratch or remix and reimagine content from other Core users. And when you're ready to publish, your game will go live on the Core platform all with the click of a button. In addition, Core recently announced their $1 million Core Creator Payouts pilot program for top creators. Core also handles all the hassle involved with multiplayer networking for you, and they recently announced their latest jam in partnership with Global Game Jam. So feel free to check out Core. It's completely free, so you can head over to coregames.com or visit them by clicking the link in the description. So thanks again to Core for sponsoring this video. But with all that said, let's start working. I started out by reading a lot of the documentation for the asset and examining the example scenes to try to get a sense of how things worked and how we're set up. And as mentioned before, I realized that the asset used level graphs and a list of preset rooms to generate levels. On top of this, I could add things called post-process events that would occur when a level is generated, like add enemies to a room or correct something for each room. Then, when I thought I finally had a basic grasp on how things worked, I started setting up Unity's rule tile system to make creating rooms much faster. And after a bit of work, I had a basic rule tile system set up. As you can see, it was looking okay. There were still a lot of missing tiles in these places, and I still needed to work on some new tiles. So I hopped into HSprite, drew up some more tiles, imported them into Unity, and now you can see things are looking much more natural. And I also did the same thing with my other wall tile set. I then tried to generate my own rooms and create some basic levels, but as you can see, stuff was really messed up. But as I was trying to fix this, I came across another issue where it was whenever I would try to generate a level, all the materials in the level would turn completely pitch black because they didn't have the correct material. And this sounds like something that might take a few minutes just to fix, but of course it took me absolutely forever and almost the whole entire day because I didn't really know the scripts too well, but eventually I did find this for loop that would generate the tile map, and I just wrote a simple line that would just replace the material of the sprite renderer. Now that we had that fixed, I could get back to generating levels, but as you can see, the corridors were still super messed up. This was just super confusing and I couldn't really tell what was the exact problem. But but after some testing, I realized that the corridors would push the tiles back in my rooms. I realized this was a problem with my auto tile system, so I removed that, created a bunch of new rooms and corridors, and there was definitely an improvement. Though I still needed some more art to make things look right, so after a trip to Ace Sprite and back, things were finally looking very nice and natural. And now I could actually generate rooms that wouldn't look terrible. Now I needed to figure out how I was going to plot my player into this level. Our original plan was to simply place the player prefab in the hub room, along with a camera, canvas, and other essential things. Though this caused a lot of issues, because a lot of scripting references to the player on start, but usually the level takes around a second to generate, so these references would get ignored, causing a lot of problems. I considered using a coroutine to wait before getting this reference, but I thought that would just make things super messy, so instead I stored everything outside of the level and simply moved the player to the hub after the level has been generated. So after a bit of work I had this. I had some really basic rooms that my player could move around and successfully collide with. These rooms were obviously not the final size, but I just used them for testing purposes. I also had to make some changes to the A-star pathfinding system to get my slime pet to be able to follow my player. Next up, I started setting up a very basic level graph that would also have a shop in it, and also make a very basic shop room, just getting things set up a little bit more like Gungeon. And eventually I had this level where I could walk around and there was actually a shop in it. I had to make some changes to the shop, of course, and the canvas is still a little messed up, but at least the shop is there and it works. Now I wanted to start working on the basics for combat, and thankfully the asset already had a lot of this stuff already built in. One thing I had to set up was room detection, so I added colliders to all the floor tiles in my rooms, and I ended up with something like this. As you can see, I can walk in a room, and I can enter the room, and enemies will spawn, and a door will spawn in the corridor. But now that I have the basics of that, I kind of wanted to change the pace, so I started working on the kind of door blocker, as I like to call them, or basically what will serve as the door for my game. I didn't really want to use doors because I thought those were too much like dungeons, so instead I started drawing this kind of little door blocker big slime guy. I didn't really end up using him. Instead, I got some feedback from my Discord server, and I ended up making this kind of slime wall thing. I am pretty happy with how it turned out. It's just a bunch of slimes on a wall, and I cannot stress how long I spent animating this guy and going through so many different versions, but I ended up on having the slime wall kind of absorb the wall. It's kind of hard to explain, but you'll see it in action in just a second. Then I made some more animations for the side walls and that kind of stuff, and eventually I took a break to start working on enemy combat. I had two ways of approaching enemy spawning in combat. The first being that I placed a bunch of enemy prefabs in a room. Whenever you enter that room, the enemies and locations of the enemies will always be the same. I'm pretty sure this is the way that Entering the Gungeon goes about enemy spawning. The other option was I could use the asset's enemy spawning post-processing effect, which would add random enemies picked from an array to a list, for each room. Then when you enter that room, the game will spawn those enemies from the list. And I ended up going with the second option because I thought it would allow for more randomness and less obvious enemy spawning patterns. Though everything wasn't perfect, and the problem was I still wanted to have more control over spawning enemies. See, right now the generator picks a random enemy from an array, which I don't necessarily want. This means that every single enemy in the array has an equal chance of getting spawned, but let's say I want to have a super rare or super difficult enemy that has a lower chance of spawning. That just isn't possible right now. So I started working on a new enemy spawning system instead of using the old pick randomly from an array system. The goal is to have each enemy prefab have a spawn chance slider below it, and this percentage would be used against other enemy prefabs to see if the enemy should be spawned. And after a bit of work and a lot of thinking, I got something actually working, so here's how I did it. Pretty much, instead of using an array of game objects, I use an array of enemy datas, which store not only a game object, but also a chance to spawn integer. I then made this loop, which frankly, I don't even know how I came up with it, but it just chooses a random value and cycles through the enemy data array to find random enemies. I'm not sure if this is the most efficient way of doing this, but I'm still super happy with it because I actually got something like this to work. Here you can see I can choose the minimum enemies per room and the maximum enemies per room. And I also have sliders for all the slimes in the game so far. Now if I hit play, walk into a room, and check the debug, you can see that it stored these enemies. But math tells us that more samples equals more accuracy, or something like that. So if I choose to spawn 1,000 enemies, hit play, walk into a room, and check the debugs, you'll see that each number is around 250, so the loop, I'm pretty sure, is working. And I can do this with larger numbers and get a similar result. Now let's try a few more samples. Then I actually got the enemies spawning, and as you can see, the enemies will actually spawn, and it's pretty nice, super simple, not too difficult to do, but I still had one problem. Pretty much as of now, the doors are on a timer and they weren't actually opening when all the enemies had been killed, so I still needed to figure that out. Though as I was working on some other stuff, I noticed that there was a lot of issues with the corridors placements and all the room kind of placements, and everything was just a little off. And after looking into it more, I realized that the problem lay inside of my kind of pixels per unit. Previously, I was using 13 pixels per unit, which makes absolutely no sense and required me to scale up my tile sets, so I spent some time changing every single sprite in the game to 16 pixels per unit. After these changes, you can see that everything looks a bit smaller in the game now, but it's a definitely necessary change and needed change, so I'm really glad I tackled that now. Next up, I finally got around to importing the door sprites, and these would be used to block the player off from leaving the room once enemies have spawned, and the only way they will open up is once the player has killed all the enemies. Then after a few minutes I had this, I could walk in a room, the door blockers would show up, and I'd have to kill all the enemies. Then after a few more hours, I got combat set up, and so you have to kill all the enemies inside of a room for the doors to open. There's still a few glitches with that, and sometimes the doors don't open, which is kind of annoying, but it's something that sounds super simple, but just ended up taking me so long to make, but it still kind of works. Now I can finally implement the animations that I made earlier. So I imported them into Unity, set them up, and as you can see, they were looking like this. I think they're looking pretty good, nothing too insane, but yeah, they were there. But there still is a major problem. As you can see, if I walk in a room, both of the door blockers for each corridor pop up, and this just kind of looks a bit weird, and sometimes it may not be visible to the player, but I still think it's just something I wanted to fix. But before I did that, I had to add a new layer to each room to make the kind of floor tiles look correct, and I also changed the background of the camera to this lighter green color. I think it just makes the walls look more natural and real. I'm pretty happy with this change. I don't want to have too much green on the screen, but I still think it looks pretty nice. But as you saw in that last clip, whenever you walk into a room, both of the doors close, which I think just looks kind of weird. So of course, I spent a ton of time trying to make these solutions. First one was using vector 3.distance and all that kind of stuff. As you can see, this kind of worked, but it was still really glitchy. So I got back, spent a bunch more time working on this. This whole thing ended up taking days to figure out, but after a few hours here, I just couldn't figure it out. But what I did know is I had this list of doors, and I just wanted to remove the doors from getting added to the list if they shouldn't be there. And after hours and hours and hours and hours of work, I finally came up with this. I would have this variable called furthest door, and I would check if the distance between the first door in the corridor and the floor game object is greater than the distance between the second door in the corridor and that same floor game object. Then I would set the furthest door variable to the appropriate door. Then, before adding the door to the list of doors, I would simply check if that door is not the furthest door to prevent the furthest door from getting added to the list. And it's actually quite a simple solution that went through many versions, so that's why it took so long, but as you can see, it actually works, so that's awesome. After I finished that, I started working on some new door blockers, because right now the perspective was just super messed up and made no sense. And perspective is just a recurring issue that I come across, so I'm trying to get better at it. So at the end of the work session, I had this. It's much more simple, but the perspective was a million times better. But by now, my brain was just fried from working on the game so long, so that's where I stopped working for this devlog. But before you go, I do have some pretty important announcements. So by the time you see this, I am out of town until the 5th, so I cannot work on Slimekeep during that time, so that's just a really quick announcement. And also, once I get back, I will be starting up online schooling very soon, which means I'll have significantly less time to work on Slimekeep and make videos. As of now, videos already take an extremely long time to produce, and the time I will be able to work on game dev and YouTube will be just a fraction of what I used to have while on summer break. Of course, I just have to prioritize schoolwork during this time, but I'll still try to release a devlog at least once a month, and I don't want to feel pressured to constantly release videos and stress myself out. So I just wanted to put that out there so you guys know. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you to everyone who made this amazing art, and if you liked the video, maybe drop a sub or a like, that'd be massively appreciated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.